1917, a panicked call, an abandoned spa, a body by a drained pool, hate words on a wall, but the glass fell the wrong way, and his smartwatch logged the last 5 minutes. This wasn't random, it was staged, and the truth points where this town refuses to look. Prologue. On a quiet Sunday evening, a call reached the dispatcher at 1917. The voice was tight and fast. A man was lying by the empty pool at the old lakeside spa. He was not moving. There were nasty words sprayed on a tiled wall. A window looked broken. The caller did not give a name. Then the line went dead. Police cars rolled through the small town of Dolny Luhy toward the dam. The old spa sat to the side of the lake like a shell from another time. Peeling paint, cracked tiles, and windows that rattled when wind came off the water. There, by the edge of the dry pool, officers found a young man. A watch glowed on his wrist. His stage name was Luna. His real name was Oliver Štěpán. It looked like a hate crime. It looked like a break-in. It looked like the kind of story people repeat in whispers, an attack on someone different, someone visible. But looks are part of the trick. In the days that followed, the picture changed, piece by piece, like tiles placed back into a broken mosaic. This is the story of Oliver, of a hidden love, of a marriage that was breaking, and of a choice that could have gone another way. The town that loves quiet. Dolny Luhy is set between a slow bend of water and thin pine woods. People here like predictable things. They cut their grass on Saturdays. They greet each other by name. They keep their own worries out of the street. If a house is messy, the curtains hide it. If a heart is messy, a smile hides it. The old spa closed years ago. Teenagers still go there to take photos, drink, and play with echoes. In the late light, the place is blue and grey and hollow. It is not a place where a good ending happens. Who was Oliver Luna Štěpán? Oliver was 27. He worked nights at a small bar called the Kotva, 2 streets from the lake. He also performed as a drag artist under the name Luna. On stage he was bright and big. Off stage he was soft. He noticed if a guest was about to drink too much and offered water and a stool near the door. He saved coins in a jar to buy a used ring light so he could film makeup tips for new performers. He wanted to start a tiny weekend show in the bar's back room. He told friends there should be more space for breath in this town. A few people adored him. A few did not. That is normal. It is the same in any town. The other side of the same town. On the council, there was a man named Adam Vavra. He was 37 and served as deputy mayor. He spoke well at public events. He had a neat tie knot. He shook hands in a way that made people feel seen, at least for a moment. He lived in a bright apartment with his wife, Clara. She was 34, organized, and good at making things look right. The towels in their bathroom were folded in thirds, all the same. The photo frames stood straight on their shelf. Adam and Clara had a story that fit the town. It was a story about order. It did not have room for large secrets. 2 lines cross. Adam met Oliver at the bar first, then again at a small library event about local culture. They talked about the lake path, old buildings, and how a town says yes or no to change. The next time, they talked longer. They found a bench near the water where the highway sounded like a far river. They met again, and again. Their messages were short at first. "Are you okay? Can we talk?" After 10, by the spa. It was a line they crossed one night when the lake was still and the sky was too clear. They told themselves it was private. They told themselves no one would get hurt. Secrets often begin with that sentence. Secrets do not stay small. The call, the scene, the first theory. When police found Oliver that Sunday, he lay near the deep end of the empty pool. There was sharp bruising at the back of his head. The words on the wall were ugly and fast, as if sprayed by a hand that was running. One window in the changing room had a hole. Glass lay in a glitter of small squares. Lieutenant Lenka Vesela walked the scene slow, with a notebook open. She is not loud. She does not rush to a headline. Still, the first idea came easy. A hate crime. It fit the wall. It fit talk in the town. It fit the fear in the bar where Oliver worked. The local press arrived. Cameras clicked. Into the space stepped Petra Hola, the deputy mayor's public relations manager. She asked for calm, for privacy, for patience. Reporters wrote her words down. Off the record, people whispered other words. Targeted, attack, outsider. That was the surface. Below it, the details began to point a different way. When science starts to speak. The medical examiner's first report said something clear and cold. There was water algae in Oliver's lungs. He had taken water into his body while he was still alive. He had not died only from a blow to the head. He had drowned. His smartwatch showed a spike in heart rate at 1842. Then it fell. If you place those numbers against the time of the call, 1917, you see a window of minutes when someone could have made a phone call or asked for help. Someone did not. Lieutenant Vesela looked again at the broken glass by the window. Most of it lay not inside the changing room, but outside on the terrace brick. When a person smashes from outside to get in, glass usually falls in. When a person stands inside and swings out, glass falls out. It is a small difference. It matters. She also looked at the words on the wall. The lines were rushed, not strong. Paint still smelled sharp. The can could not be found. Cars and phones. A small camera by the dam road caught cars that evening as they went by. At 1822, a compact car registered to Klara Vavrova passed toward the old spa. At 1831, a sedan registered to Adam Vavra went the same way. The camera did not see who sat inside. It only saw shapes and times. Adam turned his phone location off for a block of time that night. He said later he wanted some quiet at the water path, that he often turned off notifications to stop his mind from buzzing. He also said, more quietly, that he had hoped to see Oliver and talk. His hands shook when he said it. Clara said she had been home organizing the week's meals. She liked to have order before Monday. She did not explain the camera. She said maybe someone had borrowed her car. Then she said she could not remember if she went for milk. The words felt thin. At Petra's office, police found a red spray can of the same brand. The lab later matched to paint flakes from the spa wall. Petra said she had used it to refresh a campaign sign that kept getting faded by the sun. The can was not empty. The label said a shade similar to the wall words. It looked like a strong lead. It was a trap for the mind, a simple trick that points the wrong way. The bar and the mug. In the back room of the Kotva, behind a curtain where Oliver kept a few items for Luna, glitter, brushes, false lashes, there was a shelf with old mugs. The bartender, a man named Honza, remembered something. A woman had come on a quiet Sunday a couple of weeks before. It was the deputy mayor's wife, I think. Polite, direct. She asked to talk to Oliver in the back, where it was private, he said. She sat. She had tea. She left in a hurry. She left the mug. The mug sat there still, with a ring of dust on its rim like a faint grey halo. On the handle, a clean print remained. Later, the lab matched it to Clara. When asked again, Clara said she might have dropped in to talk about renting the bar's back room for a small charity event. She could not recall details. Her cheeks went pale and stayed that way. A marriage underweight. When I sat with Adam in a simple office chair, no camera, only a recorder on the table, he spoke about two kinds of love. One was the life he had built with his wife. It was a set of routines and hopes about the future, about safety and respect and the brave face they put to the town. The other was the sudden feeling that he was more himself near Oliver, that the sun felt warmer after seeing him at the bar, that each goodbye at the lake made him feel a little more empty. I told myself I could carry both, he said. I told myself no one would be hurt. He paused. I was wrong. He did not know that his wife already felt the shift in his attention. She noticed his new habit of staying on the phone late in the bathroom. She noticed the new cologne at the back of his drawer. She noticed half sentences and answers that sounded like often practiced lines. It is easy to think that a secret is inside a box. It is not. It leaks. It seeps under the door. The night at the spa. Reconstruction. What follows is the picture put together by the investigators, the lab, camera times, and two confessions told at different times with gaps between them. It is not a perfect video, but its shape is strong. At 18:22, Clara drove toward the old spa. She had set a meeting with Oliver by message from a number that was not hers. She told him she wanted to talk woman to man, to end something before it broke more than it already had. Oliver believed in calm talks. He said yes. He brought his phone and his new ring light in case he wanted to film a quick makeup tip. While there was still daylight, he tried to make useful things out of odd minutes. Inside the changing room, the air was cool and smelled like wet dust. The two sat on a bench. They spoke quietly at first. Then the words rose and fell. Clara reached for Oliver's phone when he said he did not have to show her private messages with Adam. She grabbed. He held the phone back. He stepped away. He caught his heel on a broken tile near the pool edge. He fell backward and struck the back of his head on the hard line of a step. He did not die from the blow. He was dazed. His body tried to breathe. He was at the pool's lip. There was old rainwater gathered in the deep end. It was not a full pool. It was enough water to drown in if you were weak and alone. Panic fills a room in a second. It makes a loud, wrong kind of logic. In that logic, Clara did two things. She tried to shape the scene into the story she thought the world would expect, an attack by strangers. She sprayed bad words on the wall with a can she had in the car from a sign job she had actually done weeks earlier. She swung a heavy tool at the window from inside, breaking out, not in, so the glass fell in the wrong direction. She did not know to think about where glass goes. She was not a criminal. She was a person in free fall. Then she did a third thing that had nothing to do with logic. She pushed Oliver's shoulder, and his body slid, and his face went toward the water in the deep end. The watch on his wrist recorded a fight inside his chest, a spike at 1842, then the fall. She took his phone and the ring light, perhaps to slow the story down, perhaps to kill the light in the room literally and in another way too. She wrapped the phone in a cloth at home later. The cloth still smelled like the lemon cleaner she liked. That smell would stay in the cotton like a quiet witness. She drove away. 9 minutes after the camera caught her car, it saw Adam's sedan pass at 1831. What Adam saw. Adam told investigators that when he arrived, he called out and heard nothing but the hollow echo of his own voice. He found Oliver at the deep end. He touched his shoulder. He saw the sprayed wall. He saw the broken glass. He also saw what panic had done. He understood it too quickly. He sat down on the tile. He pressed his hands to his eyes. He could have called then. He could have told the truth then. He did not. He stepped into the worst kind of loyalty, the kind that saves a person for 1 hour and ruins many lives for many years. When he returned home later, he held his wife while she shook. Her silk scarf shed small fibers on his suit jacket. The fibers stayed there. A lab would find them. Searches, drawers, and a ring of light. 3 days after the call, police obtained a warrant for the Vavra home. They came in the morning, like a hard winter. Clara stood in the doorway, arms folded. Adam sat at the kitchen table with his shoulders curved forward, as if sheltering a small flame. In the living room closet, behind a box as neat as a Christmas card, officers found a ring light. In a bedroom drawer, under clean dish towels, they found a phone wrapped in a white cloth that smelled like lemon. On a high shelf behind folded sweaters, they found a can of red spray paint, the same brand and shade as the flakes at the spa. There are mistakes you make because you are a criminal. There are mistakes you make because you are not a criminal and have never had to think like one. These were the second kind. At the station, Lieutenant Vesela laid the items out one by one. She did not shout. She did not push. She waited. Clara asked for a lawyer, then sat quiet for a long time, then began to talk in a low voice. She said she wanted the story to stop. She said she wanted her life to go back to what it had been. She said she reached for the phone, pushed, and everything went wrong. She said she sprayed the wall because she thought that was how the story would be seen anyway. She said she broke the window because she thought that was what a break-in looked like. She said she put the phone away because she did not want anyone to see messages that would hurt her more. She said this last part with a kind of honesty that was probably the first real honesty in the whole chain of days. Petra and the red herring. People in town wanted to blame someone who was not in their living rooms and kitchens. PR manager Petra Hola became a target for part of a day. The spray can in her office was a detail that looked too good. But when a suspect is handy, investigators must be more careful, not less. Petra's can did not match the lab's tiny chips found in grout at the spa. Her alibi put her at a volunteer event until sunset. Her phone was a map of messages and photos at that time. The can in the Vavra closet told the actual paint story. Sometimes an early lead is not a lead at all. It is only a mirror showing us what we expect to see. The courtroom, the words, the weight. The charges were not simple. The prosecutor could have said murder with cold intent. He did not. He looked at the line between a planned kill and a panic that became a covering lie. He looked at the watch time, the blow to the head, the algae in the lungs, the staged wall, the broken window, the late choices. He filed for manslaughter with aggravating factors and for tampering with a crime scene. He also charged Adam with obstruction and accessory after the fact. In court, the room was still. The story was told again, but slower and with numbers and photos. A lab expert explained why glass falls the way it does. The smartwatch data came up on a screen as a simple curve, a mountain that rose and dropped. You could feel the room breathe in when the curve went down. The bar's mug sat in a sealed bag with a print that did not lie. The camera times ticked in blue in the bottom corner of 2 grainy videos. Honza from the bar said he had made tea for a polite woman with a straight back and had left them to talk. A neighbor said she saw the Vavra car return early while there was still color in the sky. The neighbor did not want to be on camera. She said she had plants to water. Adam, on the stand, did not make himself a hero. He did not ask to be made clean. He said he was sorry. He said the word as if it could remake time. It could not. He described how the air felt heavy by the pool. He described the wrong kind of loyalty. He looked at his wife. He looked at the floor. He looked at the judge. Clara stood with her hands folded, as if in church. She said she pushed. She said she sprayed. She said she broke. She said she was sorry too. The word felt thin by the time it reached the back row. The judge spoke softly. She said that pain explains but does not erase. She said that staging a scene is a choice made in minutes that follow a mistake. She said that those minutes matter. She sentenced Clara to years in prison for manslaughter and for tampering, with the possibility of parole later. She gave Adam a suspended sentence on the obstruction charge and community service. She told him he would live with the weight of his choice longer than any legal term could measure. After. The bar added a small plaque on a bench near its front window. For Luna, who made room for others. People sat there and watched the street, and sometimes themselves in the glass. Young performers kept the back room warm on Saturdays. They spoke Oliver's name softly before they went on. At the lake, near the old spa, the council put a new public bench with a clean line. No plaque, just space. On summer nights, people sit and look at the water curling slow around the bend. You can hear the highway faint like a memory. You can hear birds louder. If the wind is right, you can hear kids in the distance. Petra kept her job, but wore new patience like a coat. She learned how a rumor can stain for longer than a headline. Lieutenant Vesela moved to her next case. There is always a next case. She kept the same small notebook. She still walks scenes slow. She tells young officers to look at where the glass lies first thing. It saves time. Adam works different hours now. He does not go to events where cameras are too bright. He writes letters he does not send. He goes to the bench sometimes and says names into the wind that carries them away. What people said when it was over. When I asked Honza what he remembered most, he did not talk about paint or glass. He said, he always remembered when I had a bad day. He made it small for 5 minutes. That is a gift. When I asked Petra what she learned, she smiled without humor. That neat stories lie, she said, and that neat people can be messy inside. When I asked the neighbor about the night, she said, you think you know your street, you know the cars and the dogs. Then one day the story inside one of those windows climbs out onto the road. When I asked Lieutenant Vesela about the case, she said, a stage scene is like bad grammar. The first reading sounds okay. Then you read it again, and the tense is wrong. Then you see the subject and the verb do not match. When I asked Adam what he would say to someone standing at the first step of a similar secret, he said, say the hard thing before the easy lie. The easy lie is a trap. It only feels like a rope. It is not a rope. I did not ask Clara for neat wisdom. She had already said more than enough. The lesson that is not neat. It is tempting to leave a story like this with a single sentence that makes it all feel settled. Stories like this resist that. Still, there is a line I cannot get away from. Secrets are like water behind a dam. You can stack sandbags and turn up music so you do not hear the drip. But water looks for cracks. It finds them. When it goes, it can carve stone. Oliver's secret was not shameful. It was a life opening in a town that did not yet know how to make enough room. Adam's secret began with a soft smile that felt harmless. Clara's secret was the disbelief that her life could change without her permission. Each secret pressed on the same wall. The wall did what walls do. The law took its course. That is one kind of truth. There is another kind that lives outside courtrooms. It is the truth that a different choice could have been made on the bench by the lake months earlier. It is the truth that phones could have held honest messages sooner. It is the truth that pain is not a crime until it becomes an action that takes breath away from another person. If you want a neat end, look at the bench by the water. People sit there. They hold paper cups of tea from the bar. They talk about small things at first. Fish jumping at dusk, a new coat of paint on the bakery door, a rumor about the council. Then someone says something true. It is not always dramatic. It is sometimes only, "I don't know who I am in this town yet." It is enough. It is a small hole in a dam made on purpose, the kind that lets pressure out before something worse happens. A final note. If you came here for a villain in a mask, there is none. If you came here for a hero in a cape, there is none either. There is a young man who was kind, a public figure who hid from himself, and a woman who could not accept a world outside the lines she drew. There is also a town that will now tell the story of the old spa a different way, not as a place of ghosts, but as a place where, for a night, people made choices in a whirl of fear and love and pride. The tiles hold the marks of it. The air holds less. Time will soften it the way water softens stone, but it will not erase it. We cannot go back to 1822 or 1831 or 1917. We can only sit with what those numbers mean. We can say Oliver's name right. We can build places where breath fits. We can say the hard thing first. That is not a neat ending. It is, maybe, a better beginning. If this case gripped you, hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment with your city and the exact local time you're watching. And if you're winding down, turn on my True Crime for Sleep playlist. Links in the description.